newspaper on this. You can check page. Then Southern Kaduna Group passes vote of confidence in Tinubu Ubasani. Story is taken from the Nigerian Tribune. And there is a poster from page 24 of the Nigerian Tribune. Is North Central becoming Nigeria's kidnapping capital? That's a poster. And another poster says, what next after Obi's defection to ABC? If you want to know the content of that story, you can turn to the Nigerian Tribune. Now, quickly to some sports stories. Talking about UCL, Osimhen confirmed for Atletico clash. Well, Osimhen is going to be in action again. How about that? His brother was in action. He just arrived at the club and he scored 2 goals.
Well, of course, Akko Adams did well on his return.
We hope that Osimhen will do better.
Maybe an hat-trick.
And talking about AFCON, Egypt keeper requested for my shirt. And that one is credited to Iwobi. And Slavia coach confirms Ogbu's return ahead Baka tie. If you're interested, you can check the Nigerian Tribune Sports page. And that's it for the review of the stories available in the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Over to you, Victor.
Well, I've got the Guardian newspaper right here with me, and the big story: Electoral Act, gaps in e-transmission, vote buying sanctions, spark calls for reform. You find more of that on page 6. On page 30, court orders INEC to recognize and publish ADC's list for FCT council elections. We have on page 7, Lagos to divert traffic as repairs resume on Lekki-Ekpe Expressway. Sanwo-Olu is City bigger over Makoko demolition, alleged oppression on that same page 7. Back to page 30, where we have FCT workers strike continues as union faults government compliance claim. On page 9, trial of driver in death of Anthony Joshua's friends adjourned till February 25. And on page 29, presidency accuses IPOP of peddling Christian genocide propaganda. On page 6, Davos, Nigeria pitches fiscal discipline as EU leaders condemn Trump's new colonialism. We also have on page 2, PDP chair meets ex-Vice President Sambo, says ticket open to Jonathan and others. Federal government, employers may clash over planned increase in employee compensation levy. You see more of that on page 5. On page 3, Rivers Assembly shuns Pandef peace panel over Fubara's impeachment. Now let's flip to what we have on the inside pages of the Guardian newspaper this morning, where we have quite a number of stories. Muse exits Nigeria after Trump recalls U.S. envoys. A forensic firm denies 13.7 billion naira Osun payroll fraud. And Oyetola woos Danish investors to Nigeria's blue economy. Well, on that same page 2, you see random facts and today in history as well. On page 3, INEC warns against fake election timetable, sets dates for PVC collection in FCT. And of course, we have suspense over Wike's affiliation with Tinubu's cabinet on that same page. On page 4, quality higher education will 7-year freeze fix age-long concerns. On page 5, we have a federal government rallies citizens behind national reputation and branding. And we also have this one, FG invites private tertiary institutions to research initiative. And also we have the federal government boost 3 MTT initiative with impact challenge, highs 15,000 jobs. On page 6, we have the story about the Electoral Act and lawmakers unlikely to reform an act that benefits them, according to Yakasai. But then there are gaps in transmission, vote buying sanctions spark calls for reform. On page 7, last year undertakes post-election audits. Ondo courts reopen as judicial workers suspend strike. Oshunguba annexed March 11 for commencement of campaigns, and LP to sue Ogun government over alleged sales of assets. Igboho intervenes in Alaafin Olubadan dispute over Council of Oba's chair. Interesting one there. On page 8, the metro section, we have masquerade procession turns deadly in Rivers as one dies and 8 are injured. NDLEA arrests 77,792 convicts, convicts 14,225 and seizes 14.8 million kilograms drugs in 5 years. Early morning fire destroys goods worth millions in Ikeja, Kambuja village. Ex-students arrested for alleged court-related activities in Ogun. Lasma nabs bullion van driver for driving against traffic. Benin pastor arrested over alleged sexual abuse of minors. On trial in 300 million naira gold jewelry theft case stalled by lead prosecutor's absence. And we have this one. Court hands death penalty to 33-year-old for robbery, sexual assault in Cross River. On page 9, we have son of abducted Kwara monarch regains freedom as father remains in captivity. NSCDC arrests 112 suspects over vandalization of critical infrastructure in the FCT. And yes, we have non-profit revamps library at Lagos Correctional Center for Boars. Bini Bus driver dies in Lagos crash, 6 killed on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. And flipping on to what we have on other pages, going on to Guardian Business on page 15. Elevated average energy-related costs calls for policy discipline. On business on page 16, West Africa IMT plans turning trade gains into manufacturing growth. And we also have on page 17, $16 billion post-PIA investment tips oil sector for gradual recovery. Now to Guardian Tech on page 18, digital finance, still inclusion on paper, exclusion in practice. On page 19, telcos in SSA battle declining ARPU as global revenue slows to 2.9%. And 244,851 tech workers lose jobs in 1 year. Rector urges students to leverage technology for wealth creation. On transport and tourism, page 20, imperatives of safety codes in waterway practices and development. On page 29, Singapore accounted for 58% of 2025 piracy cases, says the IMB. And fisheries gets 122.19 billion naira allocation as federal government targets 3.6 million MT output out there. And flipping on to what we have, ministry on page 22, ministry pledges to boost trade and innovation. On politics and policy on page 23, Ekiti 2026, a crowded race of no real challengers. Interesting. We have on page 24, NFC commits to improved film quality and distribution on midweek arts. That's a story. And bank promises support to creative sector. World report on page 25, Australia Parliament passes gun reform anti-8 bills after Bondi shooting. UK approves plans for Chinese mega embassy. Death toll from floods in Mozambique and South Africa continues to climb. South Sudan's president fires interior minister, wife of detained VP. In education, page 26, funding, security, infrastructure, top expectations in 2026. Of course, on page 27, how new tax law will affect engineering practice and project financing. Now to what we have on page 28, lawmakers unlikely to reform an act that benefits them, as a continuation of the story from page 6. Let's look at this one on page 29. Federal government to standardize traditional medicine practice, creates database. Uniben to partner secondary schools in preparing students for future. PDP crisis, court dismisses Anyawu's suits against INEC and others. Kidnapped Edo residents released after ransom payment. On road accident claims 11 lives in Edo. Abia government mandates landlords to facelift buildings or be sanctioned. And of course, flipping on to what we have on page 30. We have indigenous contractors vow to occupy Abuja over alleged 4.7 trillion naira debt. And of course, we also have Abdurazak shots Kwarapoli over students' protests. Okay, FCT workers' strike continues as union faults government compliance claim. And on Garden Sports on page 31 calls for 2026 World Cup boycotts over Trump's tariffs. Threats gather momentum. Top European football personalities join free. Arsenal agreed to Evan Nwaneri loan deal with Marseille. OC hints at Joshua's imminent comeback. Manchester United gets chance to sign Wilfred Ndidi as Ngenge joins Leeds United. And of course, that's as much as we can take right here, talking about the Guardian newspaper. And of course, that's a wrap on the newspaper review segment. We're going to short break now. I'll return with the weather report.
exciting prizes in the Golden Morn Golden Hunt promo. Buy any 30-gram or 45-gram promo pack. Look inside for a unique code. Dial star 8011 star 1 hash. Follow the prompts to enter your unique code to win big. Promo ends April 15th, 2026. Golden Morn. Make every day golden.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Supermalt has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
All right, thank you very much for joining us at this point in time on the interview segment. Well, this morning on AM120, we are taking a reflective journey into one of the most defining moments in Nigeria's political history. About 60 years ago, in January 1966, Nigeria experienced its first military coup, a moment that shattered the country's young democratic experiment, and it altered the trajectory of governance, civil-military relations, and national unity, amongst other things. And the echoes of that coup still reverberate today in our politics, in our institutions, our mistrust of power, amongst other things, and even in how we imagine leadership and national stability. Now, there's a lot of questions that have been pouring through our minds. Was the coup inevitable? Was it a response to deep-seated political failures and all that? Or did it open a cycle of instability whose consequences we are still struggling with? To help us to check out the causes, the consequences, and critical lessons of Nigeria's first military intervention in politics, we are joined this morning by Professor Akinkumi Alao, who is a renowned Nigerian political history scholar, as well as, let's say, a legal historian as well. Yes. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Professor, first and foremost, I think we need to set the tone by looking at what happened. What was the political atmosphere like between 1960 and 1966?
Thank you so much. In 1960, Nigeria gained independence from the colonial masters, and it was a wonderful occasion for the beginning of a new experiment in political administration. However, the nature and character of that independence became very troublesome, in the sense that to some people it was a programmed transition from colonial rule to new colonial rule, and it was managed or mismanaged by the colonial masters in the best interest of the West. So we inherited a fractured, a not too perfect political system at independence. And we needed the genius of our politicians to perfect this imperfection and to move the country forward. I'm saying this because shortly before 1960, we practiced something like a mixed blend of indigenous political administration and colonial supervision between 1954 and 1960. We had also experimented with a form of self-rule between 1951 and 1954. So, pulling the two together, between 1951 and 1960, certain individuals, certain Nigerian politicians had taken part in the political process, and some of them had demonstrated competence. But when we transited to independence in 1960, it was a different ballgame, in the sense that it became more competitive, it became more, let me say, it became more troublesome for the state to handle. And therefore, imperialist agents seized the opportunity and was able to manipulate the Nigerian political system in the best interest of the West.
So are you saying that the foundation to which it was built was not strong
Yes,
enough?
the foundation was structurally defective. And what happened later was as a result of what we inherited from colonial rule. That was why some people will argue that in 1960, we had flag independence. and not real political independence or democracy.
So just
Flag independence.
All right, now that set the tone from what you've described now, set the tone for 1966.
1966, yeah.
Do you remember the events of 1966 quite vividly? Can you recount?
Not vividly, I was a young boy, but I think I have a recollection of one or two things that happened in 1966.
Please take us through some of
Okay.
those events.
On the eve of January 15, 1966, there were movements around military formations, and it was obvious that Nigeria was stepping into an abyss. An abyss because prior to this time, the Nigerian political system had demonstrated structural weaknesses, had demonstrated incompetence to a large extent, had demonstrated symptoms of a deceased country. So January 15, 1966 provided the occasion for a segment of the Nigerian army to experiment.
So you're saying a segment, not...
Not the totality of the Nigerian army.
Now, does it seem like, looking at it inside now, does it seem like it was a calculated intervention? Was it because of a reaction to something?
It was a calculated intervention, but a misdiagnosed element of the Nigerian state. It was misdiagnosed because the coup plotters, the 5 majors led by Kaduna and Zego, actually recognized the symptoms of the ailments of the Nigerian state, but they never understood the disease and what caused the disease. So they were applying their prescriptions to the ailments and not to the disease, to the symptoms and not to the disease.
So you're just treating
the symptoms, like corruption, like nepotism, like 10%ers, like homosexuality and things like that. They were just looking at the symptoms. They are not treating the disease, the ailment of the Nigerian state.
Or is it because others were not carried along? Talking about other military...
No, in a military coup, you don't carry everybody along.
Talking about the other regions.
Okay, the corruption...
the coup itself.
The coup itself. Actually, it was... we'll come to that later because of the ethnic composition of the coup plotters. And it was a push. It was not successful. And therefore, we can read meanings into it. But when you come to deeper analysis of the dramatis personae, we look at the ethnic origin of these people, the ideological persuasion, and the extent of their commitment to the Nigerian state.
Now you are taking us back in time. Let's continue.
Let's just go on with that.
Okay. When you look at the plotters of the January 15, 1966 coup, you will discover that it was skewed in favor of a particular region. And that region had been in the forefront of wanting to impose a particular political structure on the Nigerian state. That particular region had attempted severally to promote what they call one Nigeria at the expense of regional developments. You remember that the premier of that region, shortly before independence, had vehemently opposed any inclusion of any suggestion of a region walking away from the federation. Wanted a unitary system of government for the country because of his own pan-Africanist orientation and ideology. Wanted a single government for Nigeria, not a multiplicity of governments in the regions.
But at that time, a pan-Africanist view was something that many people wanted across Africa.
Well, that would be amongst the radical elements in Africa. No, remember what led to the formation of the OAU in 1963, that it was because of their different understanding of how Africa should be structured. Some, the Casablanca group, wanted a United States of Africa. Some wanted a gradual evolution of the African state system. So that was what led to the compromise, which eventually led to the formation of the OAU in 1963. But let us leave that aside and look at Nigeria. The structure of the Nigerian state, as bequeathed to us by the British, had fractured developments in Nigeria and had divided Nigeria along ethnic lines. Even the geography of Nigeria was then along ethnic lines. We had the north, so huge, like a behemoth. We had the south, divided into two or three, the east and the west, and later the Midwest. You discover that that structure will not allow for unity, in the sense that power had been given to a particular section of the country with huge population, whether it is true or not. But that is the impression created, to the extent that the population map of Nigeria will not stand against logical reasoning and analysis, in the sense that it's only in Nigeria that you have your population growing from the coast to the desert. In other climes, it is from the desert to the coast. People move from dry ground to wetland. But in Nigeria, people move from the wetland to the dry ground in terms of our population map. So that gives you the impression that colonial masters, because of their own selfish interests, had divided Nigeria along ethnic lines to favor a particular and amenable region, a region that they could manipulate, they could take advantage of, a region that they could dictate to. And that was what led to the emergence of the first prime minister.
Now, you have described something from the introduction, and you have also repeated similar lines, while describing how this coup came to be.
Yeah.
I would like to think that at that point, there might have been a couple of voices who might have come up with, guys, this thing is not looking good for us.
From which section of the AA?
Maybe just anybody. I mean, someone might have spotted this thing you're pointing out about the grant that has been laid by the
many debates and many contributors have spoken about the fragility of the Nigerian state, even at independence. It's not a new thing, and people have been saying it. Even before then, people had opposed it. That was why Chief Obafemi Awolowo came up with the concept of ethnic states, that Nigeria should be divided into ethnic states, 8 ethnic states, each ethnic group having its own state, an independent, or let me say semi-independent of others. So that was what led to the idea of a federation of Nigeria's ethnic states.
So you now say that the coup was inevitable with your...
The coup was not inevitable. It was not inevitable because every democratic process will have its own challenges. The ideal thing is to confront your challenges and overcome them. Even the foremost states in the world, they had their own challenges. Take a look at the history of the United States. They had their own challenges, even to the extent of fighting a civil war. So we should have confronted our challenges. We should have been able to overcome these challenges. And we had homegrown solutions. But the military, mid-officers, military personnel in the Nigerian army in 1966 were impatient. Some of them, not all of them, were ideological. And some of them were mere idealists. Some were just not thinking along with others. They were concerned about the promotion of the best interest of their own region. And unfortunately, they dominated the army at that time.
Wow, this is quite telling. But then let's talk about the reaction from the moment that coup was executed, and the aftermath of it. What was the reaction of Nigerians to that, and how did it tell on the institutions that we have now?
Reactions varied in the sense that it was a mindless intervention in the political process by misguided elements. Because if you look with the benefit of hindsight, if you look at the coup, you discover that it was misguided, it was poorly managed. The only where it was successful was in Kaduna, and it was brutal. It was not the type of thing that one would expect in Nigeria as at that time. So reactions varied. From the east, where nobody was killed, where it was like a promotion of their own interest, it was well received. In the west, certain sections of the west received it well because of the fact that it eliminated a person they regarded as the leader of opposition to the hegemony of Chief Obafemi Awolowo in the west, Chief S.L.A. Akintola. The elimination of Akintola was a point of jubilation for some people, especially those of the opposing political association, the Action Group of Nigeria. In the north, it was a disaster because it killed the let me say, the political leader of the north, and it was a gruesome murder. And not only that, he was killed along with members of his family. In the military, some sections of the military did not even like the coup, and that was why there was opposition to it. Certain military officers, high-flying military officers, were eliminated. And these military officers had paid their dues to the Nigerian state. And that was why when people got to know the extent to which the coup plotters had gone, it was mixed feeling. And it was a disaster in the sense that even pregnant women were killed.
Wow, that's a sad one. All right, we have to go for this break. When we come back, we'll go through that again and analyze what we can actually learn from that. Thank you.
Win up to 5 million naira and other exciting prizes in the Golden Morn Golden Hunt promo. Buy any 30 gram or 45 gram promo pack. Look inside for a unique code. Dial star 8011 star 1 hash. Follow the prompts to enter your unique code to win big. Promo ends April 15th, 2026. Golden Morn. Make every day golden.
When malaria knocks you down, you can be sure parasites are having a party in your system.
Welcome to our new kingdom, guys.
Comel, an effective weapon against malaria.
Coleman!
Attacking the parasite army directly to give you express relief and get you back on your feet effectively. Comel on. Malaria gone.
Thank you very much for sticking around with us. We are still talking about 60 years after Nigeria's first military coup, the causes and lessons, and we still have Professor Akin Kunyalawo right here discussing with us. Now, we spoke about, the coup, how it went down, the lines that were crossed, and what it altered for us. We spoke about the reaction as well. I dare say that most of those, when you're describing the reactions, it seems like many people had their own interest at that. So they did not react as timely as they should have, or as they should really have when the news of the coup came along. Do you agree with that?
Well, some people are waiting for more information. Now, when there is a coup, you wait for information. You wait for more perspectives. You wait for more views in order to know the extent to which the coup had gone. So that was what people were waiting for. But unfortunately for them, the coup was hijacked. By the 18th of January, another arrangement had been put in place because the coup could not succeed all over the country. It only succeeded in the north. It was partially successful in the west and a huge failure in the east because the east was never planned to be attacked. Nobody was attacked in it. Even the State House in the east was not attacked. It was just in the north and the west.
So how did the second coup go?
Oh, the second coup was a reaction to the first coup, the July coup. And it was as a result of the criminal management of the Nigerian state by the succeeding military leaders between January 18, 1966 and July 29, 1966.
That short period?
It's 6 months. It was a very short period. And it was a disaster because all the fears of the people of Igbo domination were expressed between January and July. Let me start by saying that the man who succeeded the assassinated prime minister was a military man from the east, and he was the most senior military officer at that time, and he became the military head of state, and his policies were openly Igbo policies. One, he surrounded himself with advisors of Igbo origin. Two, they tampered with the Nigerian constitution to the extent that the character of that constitution was changed from a federal character or something like quasi-federal character to a unitary character by the promulgation of Decree number 34 of 1966. This decree actually made Nigeria a unitary state. Number three, certain policies of that administration indicated clearly that they wanted to overrun the whole country. There was, as a result of the large number of officers killed in the January 1966 coup, the military decided to put a moratorium on promotion of all officers. That let us wait, let us simmer, let us reorganize ourselves, let us reorganize the military, and let us not have any promotion at that time. Aguiyi Rossi did not listen to them, despite the moratorium, as agreed to by the military leadership. He promoted 21 officers. And out of the 21 officers, 18 were of Igbo origin. All these were indications that what happened in January 15, 1966, which was hijacked by Ironsi and his cohorts on the 18th of January 1966, was actually an Igbo coup, in the sense that it was meant to promote the interest of the Igbo. And the pattern of killing actually indicated that. The pattern of disruption of the Nigerian Federation actually indicated that. So to a large extent, people believe that there was an Igbo coup. And the North felt terribly bad, in the sense that some elements in Igbo land were even deriding the North, not sympathizing with the huge number of casualties, but even deriding the North. And it became a sour point in military formations to the extent that they wanted a revenge. And the July 1966 coup was a revenge coup.
Now, looking back at that, it looks like that set the tone for what we have presently, the tribal issues.
It has always been there.
So it looks like that
because the British created it.
Okay.
Under the policy of divide and rule. That is the philosophy of British administration in Nigeria. Divide and rule. When we are united, we do better than Britain. But when we are divided, we are in crisis. So they actually wanted a policy of divide and rule. And even up to now, the policy of the West to any formerly colonized state will be to divide them in order to rule them individually.
All right, now let's look at the reaction from the different tribes. It led to something sinister later on. And we saw, in public, a lot of really evil doings that happened. Can you take us through those moments and what, different parts of the country felt about it?
Do you mean as a result of the January coup or the July
after the January coup, the ongoing, the ensuing hatred between the...
Yeah, it actually compounded the disharmony amongst the Nigerian ethnic groups, because many people interpreted that intervention as being the pursuit of the Igbo agenda, and the Igbo became the pariah of the Nigerian state. People began to hate them. People read meanings into whatever step they took then, and it was a disaster in the sense that it affected interpersonal relations. You see a reflection of that even in our higher institutions. The University of Lagos crisis, the University of Ibadan crisis, and many other ones. Nationalism came under its sledgehammer, and the federal character of Nigeria was no longer federal. in the sense that it was no longer capable of addressing the centrifugal and petrifetal forces of the Nigerian state structure.
Now, are you saying that the second coup was a justified coup?
Not entirely justified, because two wrongs will not make a right. Coups are aberrations. They are not the best in a democratic setup. It only showed that we were not old enough to manage our own crisis, because the July 1966 coup did not completely solve the problems created by the January 1966 coup. We began another experiment, an experiment which eventually led to a civil war, and we are all witnesses to the implications of that civil war.
All right, now let's look at the possibilities that could have prevented what happened then. Maybe stronger institutions, maybe, like you mentioned, maybe we're not mature enough, but how could we have gained political maturity?
We were not ideological enough. We were not sensitive enough. We were not pragmatic enough. We were not capable of understanding the antics and the pranks of the West. We were unable to do a clinical analysis of that independence that was given to us just on a platter of gold. We could not read in between the lines to know why Britain would concede at that time, and at the same time be pulling the strings from elsewhere. The elite became too complacent. And if you have read this book by Emmanuel Ayodele, Professor Ayodele, The Educated Elite of the Nigerian State, you share an understanding of the nature and character of elitism in Nigeria. The elite saw themselves as the breadwinners of the new experiment, and they saw themselves as successor to the powers of the British, and the British were departing at that time. They were excited about coming to power, and so did not actually do a critical analysis of what they are stepping into. They became too full about themselves, and they wanted a new experiment. The traditional order was thrown under the carpet, and they were not doing enough consultations. And eventually, the rat race amongst them led to complications in their quest for power. You know, when you are running after power, there's a way you do it that you will hurt other people, and they were not even mindful of that. They wanted power at all costs. Eventually, many of them got power, but never knew what to do with power.
So, it's almost like the saying goes, the foundation was not laid strongly enough.
No.
So now, brings me to something that when I was in secondary school, I had a number of classmates who felt that from what we had learned in civic education, social studies and all that, maybe Nigeria was not ready for independence as at when it went independent. And maybe if the British had stayed with us and colonized us for some more years, maybe we would have become more political mature.
Well, that would not answer the question. Let us say that some sections of the country were ready for independence. Some were not ready. And the British, in order to achieve their own purpose of development, brought us together.
Do you think we would ever have been ready on our own?
Yes. If you look at the fundamental development of the West between 1951 and 1960, you will be convinced that the West was ready for independence. Ditto for the East. I cannot say for the Midwest, but for the North, they were not ready. And that was why they were arguing for us to postpone independence in 1960. In fact, it was supposed to be 1957. It was postponed until 1960, and by 1960, they were not still ready. If you look at the statistics, the number of educated people in the North as at that time, very few. Who will man the bureaucracy? But in the West, we had an overflow. In the East, we had an overflow. So some sections were ready, some sections were not ready.
So do you think the postponement was necessary then?
No, the postponement for them will have been necessary, but for others wouldn't have been necessary because they were ready.
So where would that time be when, if it had been postponed?
Well, because we wanted to lump us together, we were not supposed to be going in the same boat. We will have been given a loose federation, and each region will have been able to develop at its own rate.
Professor, now we are talking about 60 years down the lines, and is disheartening to still see semblances of this
Because
issue.
we have not addressed the disease. The disease is still there. And the disease is about what is attacking the heart of the Nigerian Federation, which is a defective political structure that will not allow all the regions of Nigeria, all the sections of Nigeria to develop at once. And that's why people have been clamoring for decentralization, for loose federal structure, for financial autonomy, even at the level of the local governments. We are not doing enough. We are not addressing the ailments. We are looking at the symptoms.
So how do we, change the tide? Because
More education, more understanding, more analysis, more discussions like this, and more ideological approach to solving our problems.
Do you think that our leaders are ready for this?
The problem is that we are always relying on our leaders, who are at the same time our own problems. You don't expect your leaders, who are your problems, to solve your problems for you, because they have different values from what you have. Their values are different. Their understanding of Nigeria is different, and that's why a majority of them would rather have dual citizenship, and they can pay any amount of money for dual citizenship because they are not complete stakeholders in the Nigerian enterprise.
But then you're talking about leaders who emerge from the people. So
have we ever seen one emerging from the people?
No, but then people say the leaders are a reflection of the society. If you go around and ask,
it all depends on the process of identifying your leadership in the process. That's when you have control over the appointment of leaders, over the election of leaders, that they reflect you. But when you don't have a control, they are not reflective of you.
But then if we go around and do a random sampling, in informal gatherings, you ask people randomly, you're speaking with them, and sometimes they also want to have the dual citizenship. They also want to just
because that's what is in vogue, and they have little understanding of what they will benefit from having a truly Nigerian citizenship, a truly southwestern Nigerian citizenship, or eastern Nigerian citizenship. We'll look at the benefits.
No, let's look at that time, because from many stories, from many occurrences that were repeatedly told down the line, many people felt people back then were proud to be Nigerian.
Yeah.
People back then wanted to be identified with each other. But then what you've painted shows that there was really a point in time where there was hatred in the hearts of many for people from other ethnic groups.
When expectations are not met, you become frustrated. Many Nigerians became frustrated as a result of the failure of leadership. I remember when we were in school, we were proud to be Nigerians. We were always holding our flag. We were always singing our national anthem. And we were always very proud to be associated with anything Nigerian. But along the line, we lost it. Take the example of our membership of the Commonwealth. That gave every Nigerian the opportunity to travel to the United Kingdom without a visa. Just a passport will take you to the United Kingdom, and nobody will stop you at the borders. Because we are members of the Commonwealth. But where is the Commonwealth today? What have we negotiated? We have been negotiated out of what we should benefit from the Commonwealth. And that was one of the things that attracted our leaders, that they saw themselves as members of a bigger empire, the British Empire. Many of them had titles, KBE, Knight of the British Empire. And many of them had their homes, even in the United Kingdom, and so many other things. So the elite actually mismanaged the independence given to us in 1960 because of their little understanding of what independence from the West would be. Then again, many of them were not ideological. Let me tell you, any political system without an ideological foundation is meant to fail. Something must drive you. There must be a commitment. In any institution, we have missions, we have goals, we have visions too. But in Nigeria, do we have that? Apart from our anthem and our pledge, what are we committed to? What is driving us? Where is the framework for development? The social framework for development. The national orientation should be doing more than what they are doing today. The National Orientation Agency is a failed agency, it's a failed institution because it has not achieved its purpose for the Nigerian Federation. We need to mobilize, we need to conscientize, we need to let people know where we are headed to. And that's where we can have purposeful leadership, pragmatic leadership in this country. So we have transformative agenda, but we don't have the leaders to take us through this transformation.
Right, so we have failed to execute what we should have executed.
Yes, we should have defined it properly. There should be a proper definition.
Now, let's go back to that time. You know, we saw a cascade of events where coup was coming after coup, and some people could not even sleep with their eyes closed.
We were sleeping.
So
Because we were expecting that each administration would be an improvement on the old one.
When I said some, I meant some of those leaders who had, overthrown the previous government.
Yeah,
now,
they are military officers. They have signed for them to die anytime. So they should be okay with coups. It all depends on where you are standing.
Really. Now let's talk about that period. It's all right for a baby to have teething problems.
Yeah.
But then, who's watching over? Who is running the intervention to check what is happening? Surely could not have been just British, the British Empire watching over us and trying to see if we are doing right by, our independence.
The British Empire was even exploiting us, taking advantage of our crisis.
So what were the others doing now? Other world powers as at that time?
There was this problem about that time of the ideological rivalry between the East and the West, the Soviet Union and the United States leading NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and the USSR, United Soviet Socialist Republics. There was this ideological war between the two of them, and what they call the Cold War. So they were looking for spheres of influence, and they extended this search to Africa, and Nigeria became a country to search.
Let me hold you a bit on that one. Let's go pay these bills. When we come back, we'll delve a bit deeper into what you're trying to explain.
Win up to 5 million naira and other exciting prizes in the Golden Morn Golden Hunt promo. Buy any 30-gram or 45-gram promo pack. Look inside for a unique code. Dial *8011*1#. Follow the prompts to enter your unique code to win big. Promo ends April 15th, 2026. Golden Morn. Make every day golden.
When malaria knocks you down, you can be sure parasites are having a party in your system.
Welcome to our new kingdom, guys!
Comel, an effective weapon against malaria.
Coleman!
Attacking the parasite army directly to give you express relief and get you back on your feet effectively. Comel on malaria gone.
Right, the conversation is still very much ongoing. 60 years after, what have we learned? What were the causes of the first Nigerian military coup? And of course, the resultant coups and military interventions that we saw at the time. How have they altered our political history? These are questions that we are looking through. And now, Professor Akin Kumiala, who was being a wonderful guest this morning, was taking us through that timeline where the Soviet Union also had some intervention. Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah, the Soviet Union was interested in Africa and wanted to extend its own sphere of influence to Africa. And Nigeria was a good choice. And it was looking for how to popularize socialism, the socialist agenda, socialist ideology to parts of Africa. So Africa became a tuft for rivalry between the two blocs, the two ideological blocs. And the Soviet Union, to a large extent, succeeded because of the populist agenda of the socialist ideology. And that was why Nigeria and some Nigerian leaders became radical public intellectuals, and they adopted the communist ideology. And many of them were Marxist in their orientation, and they needed to explore this. But unfortunately, it could not be taken to the level of the state. It remained at the level of the common man and hidden in our higher institutions.
So unfortunately.
Unfortunately, we couldn't take that to the level that will affect the nature of government in Nigeria. And governance suffered a lot as a result of that.
You said unfortunately. I'm tempted. Okay, let me just ask anyways.
Okay.
Do you think that the intervention of the Soviet Union, if it had come true, if they were successful, we would have gotten better?
Yeah, I was thinking that if this socialist ideology, what we have in what they call the Communist Manifesto, has succeeded in Nigeria, it would have, with the benefit of hindsight, it would have solved the problem of corruption in Nigeria. It would have solved the problem of ethnic differences that the British created for the Nigerian state. We will have risen above that divide and rule, and will have been operating at a level of a different ideology that will be welfarist, that will be populist, and that will be socialist.
Are you saying that the kind of government that was being run at that time, affected growth?
Yeah. The government, the laissez-faire government of the First Republic and subsequent administration actually affected the Nigerian state, in the sense that we were not given the opportunity to address the major issues affecting common Nigerians, everyday Nigerians.
You think the present-day politicians, the elites, are repeating the same mistakes that the elites, like you mentioned earlier on?
That's the major problem we have with the elite in Nigeria. That they are not ideological. They are not subscribed to any ideology. It's like, let me just do it because somebody has done it. We have not seen real ideological formations. We have pseudo ideologues, but we have not seen real ideological formations of political parties, and that's why I cannot differentiate.
So how do we change the trend?
Oh, by education, by progressive education. That's why we need to go back to the basics. That's where you affect minds. That's where you sell ideas. That's where you move your society forward.
So we start it, the present administration.
The people will ask for it. It's what we ask for. And that's why we need to conscientize ourselves like this and discuss matters like this. So we are not fooled by what we see generally and commonly.
Now, there are challenges to that, and I know that you understand that. First and foremost, growing up, some of us read books, literature, that pointed out some historical facts, and some were altered stories. Now, you would think that maybe it would grow over the years and some people would be able to read different books and maybe have a formed opinion on several issues.
No, the foundation must be put right. The foundation must be put right. When you read books with certain mind frames, mindsets. But what determines your mindset? The foundational things that you have on your mind. So when you are ideological, if you read a book that is not in sync with what you have read, you have a critical mind. Your mind will tell you that this is not syncing well, and you can disagree. That's why you read a book and you disagree with the content of the book. It all depends on what you already have as the framework of analysis. So your orientation will be to approach any piece of literature with methodological doubting. Yeah, you first of all doubt it until it will prove itself to be correct.
I do understand what you point now, but what I was trying to drive at was the reduction in history, culture, facts over time being passed down to this present day generation. Now, there is a problem. And when you have, I remember, was it last year, where there was a book released by a former military head of state, which was celebrated widely. And, some people said some details in there are altered. Some people said, okay, so what you told us before.
Like any book, the details will be altered to favor the author.
That's
why one of the major challenges of autobiographies. Because you write from your own perspective.
But then I think that if we have different books telling the stories, maybe this author is publishing this and that author is published this, maybe we would learn more so that we would be able to juxtapose, okay, this was...
The problem is that people are not even reading. It's a major problem, and it's a bigger problem from what you are trying to explain. People are not even reading. People are not reading liberation literatures. I remember when we were in school, the Soviet Union, through the progressive publications, bombarded us with books, ideological books, to give us that kind of framework that will help us do critical analysis of issues.
All right, we'll go on this commercial break, but when we come back, I would like us to look deeper into books and what they would do for Nigeria, and also the use of present-day technologies to actually influence. Since people are not really reading, what are they doing, and how can we influence that to change the narrative? But we'll be back after this break.
Thank you.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Supermalt has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
Unstoppable you.
60 years after, are we reading enough? Are we gaining enough knowledge? These are the questions that we want answers to at this point on the conversation. Professor, now, you said we are not reading enough, which is a bigger problem. If we are not reading enough, surely we have people sitting behind the camera speaking. We have people tapping some microphones to speak. Whether it's a podcast or a skit or a movie, whatever it is, a radio show, definitely some people can deliver the goods, and we can actually channel the modern day technologies to help enhance the knowledge base that our people have.
Yeah, I think let us qualify what we read. We are not reading enough progressive literature, liberation literature, and we are not reading enough history of our mistakes.
So what do you mean by progressive literature?
Progressive literature will be literature that liberates, that gives you an understanding of the world in which you live.
So how do you identify?
Yeah, that's why we go to school. That's why we go to school. We are not limited by, you can enjoy ebooks now, you can read online, you can do whatever. I have volumes and volumes of literature online that you can pick from. You can even search. You can even express whatever you want, your request, and you have more than enough. But unfortunately, we are not doing enough of that. And if you are not doing enough of that, we can do a clever roundabout and introduce social media to broadcast progressive ideas that we want people to read. And the problem here is that there must be an elite, a small group of people that will guide this trajectory of development. It's not going to start at once. Some people will initiate it. We have reading circles, we have clubs, we have cells, we have groups. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, our WhatsApp groups are meant to discuss social matters and not progressive ideologies.
We don't even have libraries.
We may not even need libraries because we have libraries on our phones.
Now, Prof, let's look at this. I was discussing this same issue with some friends a few years back. Yeah. And one of them pointed out that Some of those books that we read that were kind of liberating, that ensure that we had our mindset towards something, came around a certain region of time. And if you circle around it, you would see it was mostly around when many parts of Africa were looking to gain independence or were just gaining independence. And some people were saying, okay, this is what we must do. We must learn lessons like this. But then after that generation passed, after some parts of Africa majorly gained independence, seemingly, there was a dearth of literature that could do that job.
Yeah.
And I think some people would say that was the transmission gap that came, and it's built over the years. Now, how can we regain that? Because away from political, liberation and all that, we have been seeing military takeovers in the likes of Burkina Faso. Often we're mentioning that.
Yeah.
Burkina Faso, we had issues in Mali.
Mali
we had something that almost
Niger.
seemed like it in Niger. And, a lot of questions coming from that. Is it time for us to reactivate? Who does the job at this point?
It's time for us to go back to the basics, to belong to progressive groups, to understand progressive ideologies, and to read books around progressive ideas. It's time for us to recalibrate and to know what we intend to achieve with this state. What is our commitment? What do we want out of this state? Is it just our daily bread, or is it just a country that we can all be proud of? What is our vision of our state? What is the National Orientation Agency doing to take us back to those days that we celebrated Nigeria as a country? And if you look at the story of Nigeria up to today, Nigeria is still a great country. That despite all the travails, despite all the challenges and the problems faced over the years, Nigeria is still one. What explains this? We need to also understand the victories of Nigeria, not just the challenges. Let us analyze it. What is keeping us going? And what lessons can we draw from what is keeping us going?
Now, Prof, I want to bring some things up. Back then, we knew how things were, and there was a sort of bond.
Sort of?
Bond
okay.
Amongst the people. Someone who would travel from Imo State and take a night bus all the way to Kaduna, and yes, they could dare to sleep over with someone they met on the road in a hut, whatever it was. Some could even sleep. I've read tales of some who could sleep by the roadside.
Yes.
Now, we have barely seen semblances of this. Aside the security issues now, there's a huge mistrust. And nowadays, most times when you see Nigerians gathering for the same causes, either because they're ranting on social media about one thing that one person has done, or something else that a politician has done, all of that. And now, I'm looking at it, how do we bring that trust, that understanding of the people, that's, thinking that, yes, this person is from this side, so I must also appreciate the diversity of their culture and what they do. Let me just enjoy the experience. They cannot all be like my own culture. I cannot talk them down because of what they are doing. How do we build that?
Well, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think the problem is bigger than that. And I think the problem is about what is the state of Nigeria today in terms of inter-ethnic relations. Let me be honest with you. The average Nigerian is still hospitable. The average Nigerian is still accommodating. But when you introduce politics, when you introduce other things to it, you see the division. It is when we are contesting for scarce resources that we are divided. When we are not in competition, we are one. And take the example of the Nigerian national football teams. Anytime they play, we come together as one and we are united. Look at the last AFCON that we just finished. Look at the number of players from the Eastern region on that pitch, especially the one against Morocco. And nobody said a word about the composition of that team. So that tells you that Nigerians are ready to accept you if you are good and you are promoting a common cause. But when they suspect that you are from this region and you are promoting a sectional cause, they will resist you. And that's why it's a rat race. The average Nigerian today will still accommodate anybody from anywhere if it is not criminal. We are open to receive because we are Nigerians. And you see a further test of this when you see Nigerians abroad. The ethnic lines will melt away and they identify as Nigerians.
Because it's a neutral ground?
Because they're neutral ground, they're not competing for anything. But come to Nigeria and you are competing for access to scholarship, you are competing for access to the corridors of power, you are competing for access to university education, then you emphasize your differences to promote your cause. And that was what the British did. To use scarcity to promote division amongst us. When you compete, there will be the use of every form of weapon. You weaponize ethnicity in order to have advantage over others. That's why they will tell you that this person is Yoruba, we must vote for him, or Mawani. This person is Igbo, we must vote for him. In the war, so something like that. And in the north too, they tell you that this person is from the north and is a Muslim, we promote Muslim causes. So that tells you that our differences are there, but we can develop supranational attitude. Supra. That is bringing the nations, the 3 or the 4 nations together so that we promote that cause. Our concern should be to look at supranational issues like football. We are not competing. We are promoting the interests of Nigeria, and whoever does it better than the other person will have our support. And that's what we have been doing. That's why people will go and watch football match with 9 players from the east and just 2 from other parts of the country, and nobody will talk.
Now let's look at the issue of presidency. We find out that Igbo had only one president, since the coup, the first coup.
Yeah.
And no...
actually, the first coup created suspicion and distrust for the Igbo. It was compounded by the civil war and further compounded by the attitude of leaders from that region. This issue of not identifying with pan-Nigerian issues, pan-national issues. Take the example of political parties in the East. They are always ethnic-based. And that was why in 1979, Chief Obafemi Awolowo wanted everything to do with the East, picked his own running mate from the East. He failed. 1983, the same thing, he failed. To the extent that his chopper was badly damaged on one of his campaign visits to the East because of the endemic hatred for him and because of the narrative going on about him that he was responsible for starving the Igbo to death during the Civil War. So the Igbos will have to develop interests outside of the East, belong to political parties that will encourage their politicians to be in the mainstream. And I think that's why the present president is trying to cut the friendship of the Igbo and other groups too, so that you bring them together in one big umbrella, not the PDP umbrella this time.
Do you think that one is possible? More so
well,
agitation for Biafra.
The agitation for Biafra is as a result of frustration. If frustrations are addressed, nobody will agitate for Biafra or for Odudua or for Arewa. We need to address that. It's an expression of frustration. And if there's equitable distribution of power and resources, these agitations will be minimized.
How can we achieve that equitable distribution?
It all depends on the ideological foundation of our political parties and governance in Nigeria.
So
that's why, as educated people, we must look beyond the present combinations. Let us ask for ideology. Let us demand. We are not demanding anything from them. especially the political class. Why are we not making demands? Why are you not setting agenda for them? Even our press, they are not setting agenda for the political class. Why are we not doing that? We should set agenda. We should guide them. We should let them know that we are committed to ideological representations in our political parties and in the structure of government. We must be committed. If you want to be capitalist, be capitalist. If you want to be socialist, be socialist.
Do you canvass for a national conference?
I think we are done with conferences. We have had more than enough conferences.
What
and
can
the
we
conference
put together again?
What we can put together is our minds. Let us have individual commitments to the progress of this country and rise above petty rivalries.
Now, I know sometimes speaking about the coup and the follow-up coups, we saw the military overthrows, then the war.
Yeah,
is a sensitive topic for so many people.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know that
because lives are involved.
Yeah, and then the aftermath, the reactions, the thought process.
Yeah,
it's also leaving something in our minds that has been passed from generation to generation.
Yeah.
Do you think that actually